Hello, internet. Did you miss me? Did all of the bots miss me? Just, I'm sitting here like journaling on this Black Friday and thinking about, I got the impulse to make a video, and I thought, is that something that I should suppress? Like, is that just like a knee-jerk thing left over from a phase of my life that is past, And then I thought, whatever, we could always just not post it. We've spent many, many, many years getting something out of talking to strangers on the internet. Let's try it again and just see if that feeling is still alive. I'm sitting here journaling about like, what do I even get out of this? Like, what is this impulse? What would I focus on, right? And I feel like the last few times I've posted, it's been about like my shifting relationship with social media. And God, that just sounds like the most boring headline this year, because I feel like we're all shifting our relationship with social media, and it's not interesting, right? So then I was thinking, like, what were the things that I would talk about like in the beginning? And I'm thinking about how so much of those early YouTube videos and the early Instagram posts were about building community connections. You weren't talking to strangers on the internet. You were talking to friends that you were making over the years. Somebody who commented on videos would post their own videos, and you would comment on their videos. And over the course of a decade, eventually you'd have each other's phone numbers, and you'd see each other the next time you passed through some city that was close by. And that was a thing that people did on the internet back when the internet was fun, right? And we all had live journal communities or MySpace pages or whatever, and you built things out of those. I started my first band through MySpace. Do you know what I mean? And now, I feel like a lot of that is gone, and I see some of my YouTube friends, people who have been part of my YouTube sphere for many years. I'm thinking about like Kellyanne Maddox and Cara, right, Cute Witch, folks who like I've known for a long time on the internet, who I've met in real life by virtue of having those internet relationships. And with the exception of the two folks I just named, a lot of those people are gone. They're off living their lives. They've done other things. Every time I log into YouTube, there's an upload from somebody I've followed for a long time, and it's a goodbye video. Do you know what I mean? Like, or it's like, I'm not posting witchcraft content anymore. I'm going to try this platform or whatever. And, a big part of me is glad for them. And it's been really gratifying to see folks succeed in different ways and go off and do everything. Right? Like Kellyanne Maddox is huge right now, and I think that that's so awesome, right? Like, she's so impressive. And like how wonderful it's been over the course of years to watch people grow and remember like the impact that they've had in my own life. And anyway, I was thinking about how much of our magical practices like we share or should share, or one of the questions I've been asked the last couple of times I've done podcasts of different kinds has been like, do you think witchcraft is going back underground? Like, has the bubble burst? Are people leaving? Are they doing other things? Are you still able to find genuine witchcraft on TikTok or Instagram or whatever? And it's hard to reflect on that question without getting like really judgmental really quickly, which is something that I've always resisted doing. Because I'm not going to go out and be like, yeah, people who run their mouths on TikTok aren't real witches. Like, I'm not saying that, right? Obviously, I've spent many years running my mouth on the internet. So like, I fit into this bucket as well. But I do think that it's harder to discern. I don't even want to say sincerity, because I think a lot of these folks are really sincere. I think that a lot of the people who are out there, maybe they're pushing various kinds of wellness products related to witchcraft, or they're authors selling books, right? And I go in this category too. I think many of them are very sincere. Like they feel like these are aspects of their practices, they're sharing, they're doing good in the world, right, by putting these things out there. So I'm not going to get out there and say that like, I don't think that this is really like witchcraft. You know what I mean? But there is a part of me that, you know, I think it gets harder and harder to tell. I don't even know what adjective to use. I really don't like the word authentic, and sincere doesn't apply because I feel like most of these folks are very sincere. I certainly have been very sincere in the posting that I've done in the last couple of years, for good or ill, right? I think that it has homogenized things in a particular way. Like I feel like it's very difficult to parse maybe the witchcraft that you might want if you're a beginner, if you're curious, if you're trying to, maybe you're not so much a beginner, but you're trying to dig really deeply into one aspect of things. I feel like it's difficult to parse the helpful stuff from the advertising. Do you know what I mean? And even the people who like, again, I am in this category to be clear. Even the people who aren't like necessarily overtly advertising something at you, right? Like there's still advertising, right? Like a big part of the reason why authors like myself post on social media is because whether or not we're talking about our book in any given post or video or whatever, like it still drives traffic to our book, right? Like it's advertising, everybody. And I don't think that that's like innately a bad thing. We're all living in this capitalistic system where like that's just how we survive. But it does make things harder to parse, right? I feel like the more public I've gotten in witchcraft spaces, the harder it is to actually have a conversation about witchcraft. Do you know what I mean? It always seems to come back to publishing or advertising or events or who did what in what space, or like what's the next move, what platform are we going to next now that like Twitter is gone. Like I feel like those are the conversations. It's pretty infrequent that we're talking about magic, and even in some of the more I don't know, even in some of the more like overtly like educational kind of spaces, whether it's like academic spaces that crisscross with magical practice. The last time I posted, I told you all I've joined the religion department. I've spoken with Religion for Breakfast a few times. I was on Esoterica last year, I think it was. You know, and operating kind of in those spheres, even a lot of those conversations, you know, like the comment sections like degrade really quickly. And I don't know, I have to wonder, you know, who I'm talking to a lot of the time. And I expect that many of you feel that way too. You know, when I post a video on YouTube now, I'm going to get a lot more comments. Like there's going to be a comment, you know, that's like, oh, I'm Thorn Mooney. I'm really sad about the internet, you know, but I'm posting on the internet with all of my followers, right? Like there's going to be like, you know, comments about how I look, or comments about, you know, like, I don't know, just every time I'm on the internet, I'm asking myself if it's worth it. And yeah, man, you know, I don't know. But anyway, I'm thinking about like where my witchcraft lives. And I thought maybe I'd talk a little bit, now that we're 9 minutes in, I thought that I'd talk a little bit about like how my focus has shifted in the last few months. Just because the reality is the less time I'm on the internet, the more time I have for magical practice. Like that's just a fact. And so like getting to put more of my energy into my coven life, getting to put more energy into my meat space communities has been really valuable. Getting to put more time into my academic communities. And I feel like more and more that's probably where my future is, right? But yeah, I was fantasizing about how like you know, I've spoken a lot on my channel over the last many years about nostalgia. Nostalgia and witchcraft, whether it was like witchcraft in the 90s, or, you know, the impact of Teen Witch and Silver Ravenwolf, like as a teen witch, you know, becoming an adult and then an initiate and then an academic and blah, blah, blah. And I think about like how so much of that drive for nostalgia is about like recovering a sort of past that you probably never even really had, right? 13-year-old me did not want to be 13-year-old me, you know? And I was reflecting on it yesterday in a conversation with some friends about how, some witch friends, about, of course, about how I think what it actually is the desire to do things in private. And that's something that when I interact with practitioners of younger practitioners, folks in their 20s, even folks in their early 30s sometimes, but folks who are much younger than me, it occurs to me that many of them have not really had the experience of performing an act of magic, engaging in ritual, or engaging in an intellectual endeavor, right? Reading about this deity that has really caught your attention, or exploring this tradition or whatever, and not sharing it publicly. You know what I mean? Like whether that's a casual Instagram post about like this book that you're reading and how neat it is, or you know, photos of your altar after you've done a spell, or, you know, reaching out in some Discord forum to talk about your outer court experience with a new coven or whatever. And how many of us who are a bit older, we do have those experiences of being totally private, and how maybe that's what I miss. And I think I wrote something about this in The Witch's Path about, was that me, subtle advertising? I don't know. About how like one of like a challenge that you might undertake is doing something and then not saying anything to anybody about it. You know, no posts, no shit, no, not even talking about it, and how challenging that is. You know, that's something I see in initiate spaces all the time. Like the big challenge for people is just shutting the fuck up. And people think that, oh, that's about not sharing like your secret book of shadows or whatever. Sure. But honestly, like how easy is that? Like it's pretty easy to not like share your secret book, although people do it. I don't know. The thing about silence that's actually really difficult is just not sharing private personal things when you have that impulse. Like maybe the world doesn't get to see that thing. Maybe you need to interrogate that impulse to share. What is it that you're actually getting? When I post these things, is it actually about community connection? Is it my ego? Is it anxiety over disappearing as an author and never being offered a book deal again because I don't have a platform, right? Like, I think silence in that kind of occult sense is also about like being okay with those things, being okay with the annihilation of not existing on the internet, not being perceived by other people, having it not be important, you know, like that's been an interesting thing that I've been playing with in my brain. Anyway, I'm reflecting on that, and I thought I would tell you, the internet, and say hello. In more mundane news, I guess, I'm defending my dissertation proposal next week, so I will finally be ABD. I'll be a PhD candidate. I've been doing field work for the last year and a half, and I've got another year and a half of funding. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't finish on time, but you never know, right? And that's where most of my brain is. I was in New Orleans last week for the American Anthropological Association's annual meeting. That was the first time I've ever presented with them. Usually I'm at the AAR, the American Academy of Religion. They were in Boston this year. I wanted to go to New Orleans. Also, the theme was ghosts, and that's a big part of my research. So mostly I'm living in academic land. I've also been playing a lot of guitar. I've been playing a lot of guitar, which has been really great. That was something I wanted to get back to. So I've got an open mic I've been regularly going to, and I've got a jam that I've been regularly going to. And that's been really, really cool. I'm back to like a daily practice routine that I haven't really had since music school, you know? And I can see a lot of progress in my playing just in a short period of time. I've been playing Irish music, which is something I've always wanted to do. I actually made myself a list. I had surgery for the first time over the summer. I had like, I'm not going to call it a health scare because I was more interested than scared. And I don't think I was ever in any real danger. But I had surgery for the first time. And I made myself a list beforehand of like, oh man, like hypothetically, if I died, you know, what are some things I would have wanted to do? And that was actually a really fun exercise. Highly recommend it if you want to play with the idea of annihilation, right? And there were several things on my list as I turned to the list in my journal. And one of them was to play Irish music. And I was like, I could literally be doing that. Like I could literally just go, I could tune my fucking guitar to Dad Gad and have at it. Right? So that's what I've been doing. And slide guitar, right? That was another thing that was always kind of on the list. You know, you know what? You can do that in Dad Gad too. So here we are. So, anyway, that's been really fun. And anyway, that's where I am. I'm still posting on Blue Sky. I try to keep it light on Blue Sky. That makes me feel like I'm not totally cut off. I will say that stepping back, like getting rid of Instagram, totally deactivating X, obviously. You should get off X, by the way. Gross. You should get off Meta. You should get off Meta, everybody. But doing those things has made me feel cut off. But it's also kind of been okay because it's removed a lot of extraneous relationships that weren't really relationships. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've always been of the mindset that like if somebody, like if you don't have relationships with people outside of a very particular space, like depending on what that space is, they might not be relationships that you need to be pouring energy into. It might actually be okay. So I'm sitting with that a little bit and seeing how it feels. You know, and it's up and down, but mostly it's okay. It's been a year since I've left Instagram. And honestly, like on the rare instance where I find myself accidentally logged back in because I was on my phone and I clicked on like some business address because I wanted to check them out and they only had an Instagram page and then magically I'm logged back in on my browser or something, I get like the feed. And it's still just really sad. Like, it still just makes me really sad because it's still not my friends. It's still just ads. And now the ads aren't even for real products, right? They're for like AI fake products. And then like, there's a picture of someone with a candle spell or something. I don't know. Like, it just makes me feel bad. So, I'm exploring what magical practice looks like disconnected. And that's been gratifying so far and difficult too. So I often think that we don't realize how dependent we are on these spaces and how dependent we've become over the last decade and a half, 2 decades. My friends and I were talking yesterday about how, you know, man, the internet used to be fun and it really just isn't fun anymore. It used to be fun, and it makes me sad that like 20-somethings, especially 20-something witches, like they weren't there for the fun part. It used to be fun, guys. Anyway, I'm well. I hope all of you are well. I don't know. I'll be around. Maybe in another 6 months, I'll be like, what if I made a YouTube video? Oh, I will say, this is the advertising part, by the way. Sorry, it's the law. I'm still teaching with the religion department, and in March, I'm doing a survey of contemporary paganism. It's an 8-week seminar. I'm really pumped about it. I think there's a Black Friday sale going on. If you're into like religious studies and you want kind of an academic perspective about things, I'm really pumped about it. You can see my little outline of the weeks. That's been really fun to interact with real people, and talk about smart things and read a book together and, you know, go on a guided journey of our complicated landscape, and put my religious studies training to work. So if you're interested in that, check out the religion department and Religion for Breakfast. Otherwise, end of ad. Thank you. I hope you all are well, and I will talk to you next time.